Hey folks, I hope everyone is doing really well. Today, let's talk about Space Marine and how it got started, because what it looked like then is actually very different to what it looks like today. And that happens a lot in the industry, so I figured it would be good to just kind of share for that perspective. So I was the lead designer, I was the original lead designer on Space Marine when it was in its formative period. There was we had just wrapped up. Now, some of this is my memory, and my memory isn't great. So this is to my best recollection. Sometimes these timeframes get a little fuzzy, but I'm sharing as authentically as I can. So if you're watching this and you're a friend of mine, please feel free to correct me down below in the comments. So I had just rolled off of a game which was a homeworld, an attempt at a homeworld console game. There was a period of time when we tried to make a game in the homeworld universe on console. I can talk about that another time. And it was a period of transition for Relic. We had just been purchased by THQ, and they were trying to expand and just kind of make the whole like types of games that we made bigger and have a bigger audience. Real-time strategy games have always appealed to somewhat of a niche market, and THQ really wanted to make that bigger. They wanted to like have Relic build games that could hit a bigger audience. So we were exploring the idea of a game that was in the Warhammer 40k universe, but was using something gameplay similar to The Outfit. Not many of you have probably played The Outfit, but it was an interesting game. It was a squad-based World War II type shooter, like third-person squad-based shooter, where you controlled units and you sent them around. It had some fundamental challenges with it, The Outfit, mostly born of the engine, like a technical component. They used the same engine as what was being used for an RTS game, which, if you're familiar with game development, was a challenge, to say the least. Taking any kind of game which is top-down like that, and also heavy simulation-based when it comes to the combat, and then changing that into a much more action-oriented experience using that same technology has a whole slew of issues with it. So we decided that we wanted to replicate some of that gameplay, but in the Warhammer 40k universe. And sort of the question was, what would that look like? Would that be fun? Would it be something that we should explore? So it's something that I started chasing. We had a relatively large team fairly early on, which is always going to be a challenge. In the early prototyping phase, it's much better to have very few people working on the project because alignment is a lot easier. But those people also need to be someone who can actually make progress with the project. They shouldn't all just be theory crafters or pen and paper style designers. They should be folks who can actually implement prototype gameplay. I was exploring the idea. I played through The Outfit, and then we started sort of trying to figure out what the gameplay would look like. Instead of focusing on the single player campaign, we actually started chasing the idea of a much more larger scale multiplayer battle where players, it was like Space Marine versus Chaos Space Marine, and larger maps. Think more like Battlefield, but with capture point gameplay, where players commanded squads on the battle. So you would run around and you'd be your Space Marine, and then you would have a squad of Space Marines that were also following you around, and you could issue them commands. And then the whole point of the game was it was kind of taking the real-time strategy control point gameplay and then putting it into a third-person action type experience. We had some really interesting concept art about good versus evil, like whenever this whole idea of push and pull across the map, of the good kind of cleansing the area with like holy light, and the evilness coming in, and whenever the chaos would capture a location, it would push the evil like past and across the map. We had an early exploration around that. We had a prototype that was very, very early on. You could control a unit. This was actually, we had pivoted to explore using Unreal Engine rather than the outfit. The Unreal Engine is much more suited to a third-person action type game. I mean, look at Fortnite. It's always what it's been good at, so it made sense to try and explore using that. Unfortunately, that game didn't go anywhere. The game idea didn't go anywhere. There were a number of issues. I take ownership of some of it. I was a very junior lead at the time. I didn't really know how to like prototype in that fashion. I didn't really know how to lead a team in that fashion. And so I was just kind of thrust into the experience, and I wasn't doing a great job of leading that team. From a creative perspective, I didn't really step up to the challenge. And then on the technical side of things, there was a lot of issues with technical leadership around like, can we like make this work? Like lots of questions around how much documentation we would need or proof before we write any code, or whether we should use the Unreal Engine or not. It was a challenging time at Relic. Like we were going through a lot of growth, and yet we didn't have a clear understanding of what success looked like for us. And it was a hard time, but the gameplay was fun, and I really enjoyed working with that team. That's always what I take away. Like when I look back on my career, like it's always the things that I remember the most are the people that I ended up working with. And yeah, I got some very good advice from someone at one point when I think when we were shutting down the project, but he was saying like, he was giving me some feedback about how I wasn't being a strong leader. And he said, "You're not leading, you're hiding." And it resonated, right? Like I was sitting in a corner. I wasn't like being the focal point for a lot of the conversations. I was probably delegating a lot too much of the decisions, or I wasn't proactively setting direction enough in a way that allowed the team or encouraged the team to explore in a guided manner. I was thinking that leadership was all about me having all of the ideas and then telling the team what to do, when like that experience actually taught me leadership is much more about setting the outcome, like establishing that vision and then reinforcing that on a regular basis to people, and then asking questions of how are we going to accomplish this? Like, how are we going to get to this vision? There's a big alignment component there as well, but there's also a lot of just setting that vision and on a day-to-day basis, moving the team forward. You know, that team, we didn't move forward very well. We weren't actually making a lot of progress. It's surprising that it took us that long. I don't remember how long we were working on it, to be honest, but it felt like a lot long, like too long, basically, in order to get to a point where we had like a functional prototype of a Space Marine running around in the Unreal Engine with a squad and some basic amount of gameplay. It felt like we should have moved a lot faster to get to that point. And it felt like that was, you know, I own that. Like it was probably on me a lot in order to like, I wasn't pushing the team and getting the team to that point fast enough. Because again, I had the misguided belief in my head that leadership, especially creative leadership, is about having all the answers, when honestly it's not. Like most of the time, good creative leadership looks like having the best question. So yeah, I hope this is interesting. I am, final note, I am super glad that Space Marine got reborn. Like it did get canceled, like that project did get shut down. And then I'm super glad that it got reborn and that the team built it into what it is today. Like the Space Marine, yeah, I mean, both games I think would have been great. The important thing to take away from this is that not all games start off with this perfect vision and then that vision is then realized. You know, like most games go through this period of challenge and questions, because with creative endeavors like this, it's very hard to know exactly what you're going to be building in the long term. And so engaging in that early exploration and then ideally keeping the team a lot smaller than what we were, and then having that strong leadership and guidance so that we could, you know, to get the team to that point where they're able to like figure out and go, yes, this is what we should be building, or no, this is not what we should be building. And keeping the team moving forward is always the most important part. In this industry, if you're not moving forward, you're in trouble, right? You have to, every day, you have to always be answering a different or a new question or learning something or learning more about something that you have already pushed forward an understanding of creatively. So, but yeah, I mean, the game's fantastic today. Like, it's awesome. I'm so glad that the whatever was born out of those ashes, I think that team did an astoundingly great job. So I hope this is interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.